story of the hurricane. Obviously, Fight Talk was delayed.
No.
Tuesday, and here we are in the Obviously Fight Talk studio recording. This is episode 85, and I am joined, as always, by Robert Palin.
How are you?
Better after singing.
Yeah.
We survived.
I'm not.
We survived. In fairness,
we survived, yeah.
Dublin was alright. The west coast of Ireland and the south of Ireland got hit terribly. So, hopefully, not too much damage is affecting people, and we rebuild what was broken. Unfortunately, there was a few.
I think the people who don't know anything about the hurricane was like, what the hell is he even talking about? There was a hurricane in Ireland.
Yeah, there was a hurricane in Ireland. Unfortunately, there was a couple of fatalities as well. Yeah. And then you've people... what was the name of the hurricane? Ophelia?
Yeah, something like that.
People out swimming in Galway. Swimming.
Yeah.
Avoid red warning, stay indoors. I'm going fucking swimming.
Do people not remember that RTE reporter shouting into the screen in the middle of the storm?
Do not take
swim.
Unnecessary journeys.
Yeah.
Now, my problem with this is, right, this is a bit of a rant to start 85, but it is, right, is that the emergency services of this country have a hard enough job helping, protecting and saving people in situations, and then you have these morons that go and put themselves at risk. The thing about it is they're not just putting themselves at risk, they're putting the emergency services who have to go and rescue these gobshites at risk. It's not the start of the show I was expecting, Rob.
No.
But people are idiots.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting the people who save you doing that could result in somebody who's in trouble at home, be it having a heart attack or something like that, losing their life because you're a moron who said, I'm going to go swimming in these big waves.
Exactly, yeah.
But anyway.
Very well said.
Stupid. But this is obviously Fight Talk 85. Bit of a weird start, but get the rant out, Shout out as always to Fight Star Ireland, the fighter's choice. Everything you need under two roofs, be it testicle holders, shin guards, the lot. They look after Conor McGregor. They can look after you. MMAmix.com there. Obviously good, because they're with obviously Fight Talk to do things a little bit differently, and that's what we like about them. And then to feelsupreme.co.uk. Check them out, and if you noticed, our MMA gloves are gone this week off the stand. Competition running on Facebook, like obviously Fight Talk, like feelsupreme.co.uk's page on Facebook. Comment on our post about it.
It's on
Tagging
Facebook
two
right now.
People that you would like to win the prize or share the prize with, and you're in with a chance of winning some CBD oil, some them bottles of stuff. It's basically
cordyceps and rhodiola.
It's basically an athlete recovery kit. Go check them out. Share the post. Like the post. You're in with a chance. And while you're there, go on to feelsupreme.co.uk. Buy some items. Get to the checkout. Use the code FIGHTTALK. You get 10% off. What more could you want? Do you know what more you could want?
Anytime you say that, you go 20%, maybe.
Well, I just said what more do you want? Do you know what you want? Do you want a show with 3 guests from the UFC? Would that tickle your fancy?
Mm-hmm.
The voice of UFC Europe joins us. John Gooden.
Looking forward to that.
In Poland, in the Fighter Hotel. Connection. Come on. But, we're going to be joined with John Gooden. They're going to be talking all things John Gooden, really. Talk a little bit about what he wants to do.
Talk a bit about UFC Gdansk, maybe.
Have a look at what he wants to do. As you can tell, if you're listening to this, going, how do you know he's going to talk about? Because it was bright when we were talking to him. If you're watching on YouTube, it's dark now. Figure it out, people. We're then going to be joined with coming off probably the biggest fight and victory of his career is the Spartan. Cody Stamann, of course, defeated Tom Duquesnoy at UFC 216. So we wanted to get to know the man who beat Tom Duquesnoy, and we will do that. And then we're joined by the happiest fighter I think I've ever spoken to in my life. And I've met a few of them. Smiling Sam Alvey will be joining us as well from Gdansk, and as well on the same network connection as John Gooden. So let's see how it goes. But let's delve straight into it, Rob, and let's dial up the voice of UFC Europe. Welcome along to obviously Fight Talk, John Gooden. So welcome along to obviously Fight Talk, and if you're watching on YouTube, you might see a familiar face, but you'll certainly know his voice when he speaks up. We're now joined by the voice, the one of the many voices, but the European voice of UFC. We're joined by John Gooden. So John, thanks a million for taking the time Fight Week to come on to obviously Fight Talk.
Pleasure, thanks for having me on.
It's something I remember when the UFC sort of made their European introduction with you guys. Essentially, it was you guys when it came about. And I remember everyone was like, "Oh, what will it sound like without Goldie and without Rogan?" But now I think it's not a European show without you and Dan Hardy, the duo that is. How did the opportunity come about in a way with the UFC, John?
Well, firstly, thanks for that. I mean,
we lost it.
We've obviously worked hard at not trying to establish ourselves as a team that represent European mixed martial arts and beyond that now as well. Essentially, it came about through working hard, never really aiming at the UFC, just working for various different promotions, including Cage Warriors. And I guess I was probably one of the more visible commentators at the time when the UFC were expanding things. So I got really lucky, and I guess I've done well enough to stick around.
So you said that you never really aimed for it, but at this point now, are you looking at this position and thinking, well, maybe I'm going to get to the point where you're going to be the voice of the UFC, maybe you'll do the UFC pay-per-views and the American cards? Is that something that you look at, or are you just concentrating on doing the European shows at the moment?
Well, I mean, being one of the voices of the UFC, if you like, is such a privilege anyway, that I'm so happy to be where I am, and because I never really aspired to even be in this position, I'm super grateful. But of course, I'm ambitious. I'd like to do more shows. I'd like to do more. I think commentary, of course, is something that I value tremendously, and it's kind of, if I could give myself a job title, it would be UFC commentator. However, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in mixed martial arts in Europe, from probably a presenting angle, production, that kind of thing. So whereas I'm really happy with my work behind the mic on fight nights and for FS1, of course, an opportunity to do a pay-per-view is amazing, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. But what I would like to see happen is more opportunities for myself and Dan, myself and others to try and represent European mixed martial arts a little bit more on maybe a broadcast channel, YouTube, whatever it might be.
You obviously do Inside the Octagon, but do you think that maybe, as you said, the UFC could push to have more of a presence in the UK? Because they haven't really come over an awful lot. Like they used to come over quite a bit, and it's kind of getting more sporadic coming to the UK and Ireland. They haven't been in Ireland in quite a while. Do you think that, the UFC aiming to have a bigger presence, having constant programming in the UK would be a great thing?
Yeah, I mean, so just so I don't get it wrong, I mean, you kind of mentioned about the UFC coming to the UK and Ireland, but also programming. So let's put the theme of the programming. So yeah, I believe that, well, BT Sport, they're the ones who own the rights to the UFC in our region. So really, you would think that they would put on a show. I mean, they used to have one, and it, for one reason or another, it was then canned. But I don't think that it's for a lack of demand. I just think they need to get a different kind of show. I think Dan and I have a very clear idea of what that show would look like, to really help push the sport, the athletes, feed the fans, really. And, educate new people about this wonderful world of mixed martial arts, specifically the UFC, and go from there. It always seems to fall down on the shoulders of the UFC, which people don't always think about, like drug testing. The UFC prop up the game with their drug testing. They help create federations. It seems to always be down to the UFC, but actually there are other people that have an infrastructure in place that I think could help as well.
Do you look at something like UFC Tonight as maybe a UK version or a European version of UFC Tonight?
No, I think that Dan and I do things very differently, which comes across in our commentary. We would like to do a more Soccer AM style show, a bit more laid back. I think, Dan and I are quite laid back, and the guys in the US do a fantastic job with UFC Tonight, and then the Fox Sports shows as well, where they're in this wonderful studio, all dressed very nicely and with their presentation style. But we just do things a little bit differently over here. And I think that fans might respond a little differently with a different look. So that's already been done, and I think fans have access to that. So let's give them something different as well, to feed a new audience. But I mean, this is just obviously an ideology right now.
It's something though that I think would relate. It's something like, obviously we're on a podcast here. There's a couple of podcasts in Ireland, and there's a lot in the UK as well. So the content for the hardcore MMA fan is out there. But we find ourselves, like with our podcast, like it's great having guests on like yourself, where you're talking to people involved in it, and it's more so you have to really be an MMA fan to find this podcast. You're going to flick by it if you're scrolling through iTunes, you're just going to scroll through it. But if you're an MMA fan, you'll see it. So I think especially now, like I'm sure you're well aware when, like for example, like Conor McGregor fights, the whole social media just blows up with it, and that's something that I definitely think they're not engaging or trapping to catch that neutral fan in a way more so than the likes of the podcasts like this, like the Brad Pickett's podcast, all these type of podcasts, all the Irish ones here, Severe, Talking Brawls. But again, you have to be an MMA hardcore fan to find this. So the idea to try and catch that neutral fan, but is the audience there to hold the neutral? Because we know the hardcores would watch it, but is the interest? Do we have a star like Darren Till fighting this week? So I'd imagine if there was a show running this week and it was all about the Liverpool boy, all Liverpool would be watching. But could it be maintained each week for like an hourly or a 2-hour show?
Well, I have to say yes, and it would just pick up on the continuity of those stories. And there's so much movement with the UFC internationally, and so that just gives you lots of stuff to talk about. Yes, it would appeal very much to the established fans, but where do new fans then go to learn more about the sport, be introduced to the athletes, understand rule sets, judging criteria, a bunch of stuff, But there's nothing right now, and I think that there's so much intrigue about mixed martial arts, even more so with the Maymac fights, that people are probably looking around for it. But then if it's not there, then people think, well, if it's not big enough to have its own show or whatever, then why should I invest my time? Perhaps, I don't know. It's just a shame. I believe that there are legs for it. It doesn't have to be massive budget. I just think good quality content with the right people around it, and people who understand what the fans need, new and old, satisfy everyone. I think it would be good, and I'm going to probably do some stuff myself soon to try and hit a few notes as well, because I just want to go out and see these athletes in their environments and give them an opportunity to tell their story.
I think like you only have to look at the success of the likes of the embedded episodes and stuff on YouTube. Yeah. You click onto any of these, it's great to know the fighter. Not just the guy who's wearing the 4-ounce gloves, but to actually get to know the guy behind it is a huge insight, and in a way makes you root for the guy more and creates more of a fan, be it the way it is in football or whatever like that. You have your team, you have your loyalty because you like the guy. So I definitely think there is the market there for it. And again, this is the point though, it seems to be YouTube or internet is the only real interest. But my one point I'd have to that is, obviously in the UK, Sky Sports will be seen as the biggest broadcaster. So do you think it's just down to politics because BT Sports own the rights to the UFC that Sky Sports aren't covering it as much?
Yeah, Sky wouldn't be allowed to, I guess, because of that exclusive relationship between BT Sport and the UFC, because they're going to own the rights to the content. I'm not sure how much Sky would be able to get hold of stuff and things of that nature. So, but look, people watch content differently now, right? I mean, we stream it a lot. Netflix is massive. I don't really use my TV at home anymore. I truly don't. I just watch things differently. So, I think through the various social media channels, then you can get something out there. But I just think, Ariel Helwani is someone, and you guys will have a fan base where they trust you to walk them through interactions with the athletes and certain aspects of the sport, and we kind of entrust those people. I think Dan and I hopefully would have the trust of certain fans to be able to, walk into the space of those athletes or bring them into our space, have a chat and talk about stuff. So I definitely think that there's room for it, and it's time. I really do think it's time. I think we need to capitalise on some momentum, and we need to keep moving forward. That's what we need to do. We need to keep moving forward, keep challenging things, growing, trying stuff out. We've got to try it, and hopefully we'll see some movements there.
One of the things a lot of people talk about is you and Dan Hardy, that partnership. Did you work with Dan before you start working with him with the UFC? Did you work with him in Cage Warriors or anything like that? Because it seemed like immediately there was a connection there between you two.
No, Dan was over in the States. So the very first time I met Dan was during the screen testing process.
Wow.
So we had 10 minutes to speak with one another. Then we went into like a sound booth. They put a bunch of cameras on us, and we called some fights, and that was it. But we actually spent a fair bit of time talking before and after, and I'm very grateful that he gave me a chance to get my opinions out. Someone who I train still, so I quite like to be a little bit more technical than what you might hear from some other lead play-by-play commentators, and Dan allows me that. But then I think it's important because I can kind of challenge him in a different way. I can get to the next level because I kind of know what he would say with level 1. So let's go level 2 and see what he's going to say here. And I think having that mindset from being on the mat and looking at something, hearing Dan say something, go, okay, well, how would that work if we were in this position? If he was top half guard and we had to play here. So I enjoy that. I hope Dan enjoys kind of being challenged in that way. And, again, we both really want the sport to succeed in our region, obviously internationally as well. So we work on the same channel. We work together to try and promote the sport.
Is there anything else you think that can be done in Europe to grow the sport? Because I remember reading an interview when you first got the UFC gig and you're talking about how you would dress. You dress different than a lot of MMA guys. You'd wear the bow tie, you'd dress up basically. It was the complete difference than the guy wearing the t-shirt with tap out. It was a complete different thing. Is there anything else from that angle or production angle? Yeah, no, this guy from the production angle you think could be done?
Listen, the UFC have tried many, many, many things, and that's why it's such a well-oiled machine, and they know where to invest and where to apply pressure. Things of that nature. They're the market leaders in what they do, and I see some fans come out, some media come out and say they should be doing X and Y, but they don't truly know what's going on behind closed doors. And I've learnt to trust what they're doing. So I think that the UFC are doing a lot of making all the right moves. It's a difficult time, I think, at the moment because obviously with the takeover, there's a culture. There's going to be like an embedding of different culture there, and new people working together, establishing the synergies where the WME IMG guys can work with the UFC best and vice versa. It's exciting for me. I go down to the IMG studios and I'm talking to Ian Wright and Dion Dublin and various other kind of Premier League footballers or veterans, and then some of the presenting staff and some of the producers, and now they're learning about the UFC. So there is a kind of by osmosis. We're going to acquire knowledge and they're going to learn about our sport. So it's going to take a little bit of time before we really see the fruits of that. But I can only really speak from experience and say we're now in the same building, side by side with mainstream sports. And they're excited to see our growth. They're excited to see, to have conversations with us because we're the new cool kids, I think. Yeah. And I think we're doing a lot of the right things. We got Cowboy Cerrone that's come over main eventing here in Poland. I know that the fans want big cards, but the UFC are trying to grow things internationally, and it's difficult. It's difficult to get a big name on every single card. There's scheduling. There's so many things that go into matchmaking. When I speak to Sean Shelby, it blows my mind in what's involved, and have a lot of respect for the work that Joe Silva did and what the guys are currently doing. So there's a lot more to it. So I'm certainly not going to even try and suggest that I have the magic formula because I don't. But yeah, of course, I think just going back to what I was saying earlier, I think there is a space at the moment to do some more wider magazine type programming to get the message out there. But I think equally important, give opportunities to the fighters in a more relaxed surrounding to tell their story and connect with fans.
I think that's very true. Like, I think the whole idea of the Soccer AM type TV show would be great, because, as you said, you were talking to Dion Dublin and all these guys. Like, if you're a casual fan or you're just a fan of football and you scroll past MMA AM, whatever you want to call it, and you see Dion Dublin or a footballer, you're going to say, oh, these guys like MMA, and then that'll get you into it as well. It's more of an entry level. It's like a follow the leader type thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this was, when people were questioning why I might have been given the gig as a commentator in the UFC, etc., I used to say to people, if you're a sports fan and you're channel hopping and you come up against this thing called UFC and you don't really know what it is, but it looks big and it looks kind of cool, but it's American announcers, it's American voices, largely American athletes. I mean, how invested are you going to want to be if you're a guy from the UK? You might not think this goes on down the road. So then, if all of a sudden you're coming across increasingly like Dan and myself, and maybe like you had Caroline Pearce before, and hopefully more British voices going forward, then you're like, I saw that last time and it looked really cool and big, and there's English guys now, and I wonder if this stuff is happening locally. And all of a sudden you find that Brad Pickett's show is like Rock Events is going on down the road, or you've got Cage Warriors, Shock and Awe. You're like, oh shit, this stuff is happening everywhere. I can now go and watch Grassroots as well, and that unlocks the door. So you very much tapped into my kind of comeback to people to say, look, if we keep having Joe Rogan and Mike all the time, then it very much looks like an American product. We need to make it more colloquial. That's why they've got like Dutch guys coming in for the Fox Sports broadcast when we go over to the Netherlands, etc., etc. They're going to have probably Polish announcers here as well. So there's a choice. But you need that, because then it makes it exist in that territory.
Just to touch on one thing that had me crestfallen, we've said his name a few times, but when Goldie was let go, it's a change in the guard, and I know times have to move on, but for me, I was watching the UFC in the 90s. I'll start giving me age away now, but I grew up with Goldie and his voice, and I thought after Goldie was gone, I thought there's no way I'm going to get accustomed to this. Were you surprised with Goldie moving on? And were you, I'm not going to put you in a position to say, were you a fan, but did you take anything from his style of commentary yourself, or, as in, did you pick bits of what you like, or do you want to put your own mark on how you call fights?
Well, I absolutely loved Goldie's work. I couldn't have followed mixed martial arts for as long as I have done, so with such intensity, if I truly hated the voices. And I've learned, listen, Mike opened the door for guys like me. Like, if he showed the way. So he has a very different style, and that's the thing. And I would say this to any announcers out there, any people that are trying to, be a voice in the sport. Don't try and be someone else, because you'll likely never be as good as the person that you're trying to emulate, because they've had reps, hours, years of reps. And Mike and I have very different voices. One, English, American. When you get into the science of voices, we naturally have a higher pitch to our voices. Americans are a much lower tone. They sound more masculine. He had a much greater power to his voice, which he developed over the years. If you listen to some of his earlier work, he actually sounds quite different to what he does now. Yeah. But that's because the voice grows with intensity as you push it. So there's room and hope for me yet. But no, specifically, I looked at the way that Goldie would format some of his fighter notes, and I took some advice from him. And we worked together sort of side by side on a couple of cards. I would work backstage, or I'd be doing some producing work for the UFC, so I would come into contact with Mike a few times. He was a gentleman. He was always willing to help me out. John Anik has been like one of my mentors through this journey, but Mike, whenever I saw him, was equally, just very forthcoming with stuff. So I'm truly grateful. But yes, I now see myself very differently. Of course, through my Cage Warriors days, I would probably look at the format of how Mike would introduce the whole way that the fight would start and finish and the pacing. I would look at that. But then I look at football. I look at figure skating, horse riding, cycling, battle bots, whatever. Listen, I look everything and see if I can bring something new to keep it educational and entertaining. So I've got to do what I think is right for me. That is to be more technical and have fun. Have fun, be honest, be myself. So I can't be Mike, I can't be Anik. I can be me, but I can certainly learn from them and have done.
Great answer. I'm going to use a terrible joke. So what you're going to say is you are not virtually identical.
Jesus Christ.
I had to.
I like that.
I said it was poor, but
it was very bad.
I'm going with
bad joke.
Bad joke.
Yeah.
Big fights coming up this weekend as well. You touched on a little bit there with Cowboy headlining. Obviously, you coming from the UK background, you probably know a lot more about Darren Till than what our American friends know about Darren Till. We had Darren on the show a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of the comments in regards to him blasting Brendan Schaub and stuff like that, where we don't know who this guy is, why is he fighting Darren Till? Do you see a possibility of an upset here going down in Gdansk?
The fight game. Mm-hmm. It's the fight game, and you have someone who is so confident, absolute belief in themselves. Now, we hear this a lot, and of course the main guy that we hear about, self-belief, visualization, etc., is Conor, because he's backs it up with results. However, I'm very lucky that I get to speak to fighters regularly, and I'm telling you, there's something different about this guy. There's something different about the first time he walked into a room. He made me notice him. He had a certain posture. He had a point to prove. He was very respectful, but at the same time, he was not there at that point to fuck about. Yeah. He was there to make a statement and announce his arrival. Yeah. And I very much enjoy his company. He's a really, really good guy to talk fights with. He's obsessed with this stuff like we are. He loves it. He enjoys it. And that is a mark of someone who I think, if he can produce those performances in the octagon, people are just going to want to hear from him. A bit like how they want to hear from Dan Hardy, how they want to hear from Michael Bisping. He's probably more like Bisping than he is Dan. But at the same time, he's very technical. He's a really good kid. And I enjoy watching him fight. I've been lucky to commentate nearly, all but one of his performances so far, and he's so confident. Why not? Listen, his game is not perfect, but he's young. He's going to grow. He's got a great coach in Colin Heron, who's been around the game a long time. He's produced UFC quality fighters many times in the past, and I'm excited for it. It's difficult when you're so kind of invested as a UK guy, and we've been with Darren in studio as well. So there's a romanticism associated with that. But he's fighting Cowboy Cerrone. Mm-hmm. I think he could equal the most amount of wins, and if he gets a knockout, he could equal like the most amount of knockouts as well. Mm-hmm. He is a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He's a fan favorite. And he's fucking good. Yeah. So they had come out with the very best performance of his young career in order to get the win. But why not? Why can't he? He's getting better and better. So I can only see him bringing his A game. And who knows? It's such an exciting fight for that reason.
I think that's the big point of it. It's like a lot of people there's people on both sides. There's people on what Darren Till said, which I agree with, is why can't he move up? At what point does he have to stop fighting guys in the prelims and actually make that jump? It's sink or swim sometimes. You just have to do it. And then on Cowboy's side, I understand the likes of Brendan Schaub saying this is a tough fight for Cowboy. It's kind of a lose-lose in some ways. I don't think it's a lose-lose, but it's it's a guy that not a lot of people know. If you lose to him, you're on a 3-fight losing streak. So it is a tough fight for Cowboy. Do you see that yourself? Do you think that maybe for Cowboy this is a very dangerous fight?
yeah, it's a very dangerous fight because Till is legit, you know, and he can knock you out, you know. I want to speak to Donald, and I'm not going to give away all my best lines and things like that, but I listened to an interview where he was talking about the Lawler fight, and it wasn't from a place of I lost that fight. Yeah. He enjoyed it, and it was almost like he had to be reminded that it was a loss and he was on a 2-fight losing streak. And I don't know what it is, but it just seems like he just loves to fight. Yeah. You know, he loves to fight. He likes to challenge. And the spoils, yes, they're great. And I'm not saying for one moment that he doesn't want to be a champion. Of course he does. But I don't know what's driving him. You know, I think there's something so unique about Cowboy in the way that he approaches life, where he lives everything to the fullest. There's so many more layers to him than just Donald Cerrone, the fighter. There's Donald Cerrone, the guy in nature. There's the cowboy. There's now the actor. There are so many other things that he enjoys in life that, you know, I don't know. I don't know where his head would be at with this. I really don't think that it would scramble him, or he's seeing this with any great pressure. And of course, you know, I think the guy could probably go on a 6-fight losing streak and he will still be very much welcomed inside that octagon. So, but of course, look, he's competitive. He's going to want to win. He's going to want to go for that title. He's just a very special case. And I haven't really figured out what that is. And I kind of just want to get in front of him and speak to him about it. Did that sound weird? I don't know. When share the same kind of...
Yeah, I was thinking about the fight coming up to it, and I was thinking about the question of will Donald underestimate Till, and the way Donald accepts fights, the way he takes fights, the way he approaches fights, I don't think he will. I really think he looks at his next opponent as the best guy he's going to face. Like, if you only have to look for somebody to drop off a card, and everyone's just waiting for Donald Cerrone to come in and accept the fight. You know, so I don't think he looks at, you know, Lawler and say, oh, this is a good guy, I have to train hard, and then looks at Till saying, oh, he's not as experienced. I just think he looks at fighting as fighting. I got to do my best. So I completely see where you're coming from.
I don't think that he is the kind of guy who's very cyclical as well. I think he's constantly training and challenging his body, where we probably, you know, we've all looked at Connor's specific movement training and he does this, that and the other. Well actually, you know, Cowboy does that but on a wakeboard and on the back of a horse
while drinking a beer
like that. Whilst drinking beer. I mean, that is his vice, I guess, but he's doing a lot of stuff here which, you know, he's still remaining active. He's still challenging his systems and things of that nature, so he's always in shape. He's but he'll just have to probably cut down on getting wild with knocking back the butts. It's just he's a fascinating guy. He really is, and I look forward to speaking with him.
It's a fight I look forward. And Rob, you were saying that you think he underestimated. I think when Cowboy was sort of taken out of context, where he said, "I don't know who this Darren Till guy is," I don't think it was disrespectful. But the one thing that Darren Till has done is, with the way what he said, and rightfully so, he's got Donald's attention. And there's no way, if there was even an inkling, I don't think there was, but if there was even an inkling of Donald underestimating Darren Till, that's gone. So I think this is going to be a spectacular firework of a headline event. One for Irish hearts fluttering on the night as well, John, we just touch on with you, is, he is Irish, he's adopted Irish, is the Russian Hammer. Artem Lobov is getting in there after what you said. Cowboy had to be reminded that he lost to Robbie Lawler. The same could be said for Artem here, that he'd have to be reminded he lost the Cub, although it was a unanimous decision. Everybody thought this was going to be an absolute whitewash of a fight, and Cub Swanson was just going to absolutely wipe the floor with Artem. So Artem Lobov takes on Touchy-Feely in this one. What do you think here for the Russian Hammer? Are you looking forward to seeing him back in there and throwing standing hammer fists?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Artem. I've known him for a long time. Actually, he's one of the few people that I've already seen in Fight Week. We had a conversation. He was with Peter Queally earlier, and we actually weren't talking about the fight. We were talking about other stuff. So, listen, he's always a great addition to a fight card. I think I was actually talking to him about the blueprint that none of the SBG guys had, and look at what they've achieved. You know, under the under the watchful eye of John Kavanagh, they've just done some incredible things, like uncharted territory from the get-go. Everything's been revolutionary, really, for this side of the water. And Artem's been, a big part of that all the way through. And he's just come off the back of, like, the Maymac craziness. Yeah. And he was right in the eye of the storm. And, I mean, it's just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I don't know how you deal with that level of exposure and things of that nature. I have a small following and I'm very grateful for it, but you're very cognizant of the eyeballs that are around and people are listening to what you've got to say. Is it right? Is it wrong? Indifferent? Whatever. And, these guys are looked at for not just what they're saying and doing, but also how they're fighting, which is kind of how they put food on the table and it drives them. So they're very special athletes, these guys and girls. They don't get the training that, footballers do coming up from when they're 15. They're kind of thrown into this and with the most passionate fans in the world. But listen, everyone is talking Artem Lobov. If they're a featherweight, if they're a lightweight, they all want to fight him. He's in most post-fight interviews that I've looked at, in researching that weight category recently. So he knows he's a wanted man, but he always brings it. Super resilient, got a great team around him, as does Andre as well, who I saw, real nice guy, complimented me on my footwear earlier. So, of course, now he's in my books.
Just became best friends.
Yeah, we're besties now. So, he's here with Team Alpha Male, and they're always great to have around in fight week. They're such a presence. They're really fun. They're fun from when they hit the ground. So, good to see those teams, those great minds and athletes working against one another in the name of the sport. So that's a good fight, and it's right there in the middle of the prelims, but quite easily it could have been on the main card here.
We've held you for longer than we thought we would, but I'll just ask you a quick when you're doing your research on this card, what fights have stood out to you from a technical perspective, thinking this fight is going to be a really good fight, or from a just a fun perspective, this is going to be a fun fight?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of new faces, particularly from Poland, so I think that's there's a few there to look out for. I was actually watching, just because I was watching his fights earlier. Marcin Held is a fight that's just full of talent. So on UFC career so far. I mean, he won that fight against Lozon. I've watched it 3 times. I can't score it any other way than for him. And then he was winning against Damir Hadzovic, but I can't put my finger on it. I can only say he made a terrible error. Like, it was a mistake. It was a decision that was wrong. He went for the Inamari roll. At the beginning of the 3rd round, when you're 2 rounds up, you're dominating. You can coast it. I mean, his style can be exciting. That fight probably wasn't the most exciting, but you had a close loss last time. Like, what were you thinking? And now you're really up against it. You're fighting at home, so hopefully that will go in your favour. But he's a guy who I respect his skill set a lot. He's only young, like 25, 26 maybe. He's doing everything he can. He went over to ATT for that camp, not for this camp. And it was exciting I want to see what he can bring. So he's a guy that I'm looking at. Jan Błachowicz, again, his back's up against the wall. I've spent a lot of time with Jan. Super nice guy. Hasn't really fulfilled his potential in the UFC. Damian Stasiak is a very, very good Polish prospect who came up against Pedro Munoz, who is a top contender. Gets Brian Kelleher, who full of beans. That's going to be a wild fight. It's some really good storylines out there. And we got Sam Alvey fighting on this card as well now.
And he's on with us in a little bit as well.
He's a really good personality to have around on fight week. He fights Emeev, this guy from Dagestan, who, from what I understand, is a very, very good guy, like a really nice guy, does a lot for his community, and equally is a dangerous fighter, an M1 champion. So very exciting times. We've got champions from other organisations, strong organisations coming and fighting over here in Poland, and we got Cowboy versus Till at the top of the bill.
I have 2 quick fire ones for you. Your favourite moment in your career so far, John, that stands out to you. If you had to close your eyes and think of it right now, what's your favourite standout moment?
Oh dear. Well, I mean, I'd say probably the first one would be commentating Bisping versus Silva in London. That was massive for me.
Yeah.
I think another moment, though, if I can put that in there, just because I've spent a bit of time with him, was when Alexander Gustafsson knocked out Teixeira and then got in the octagon and proposed to his now fiancée. I've been to his house.
Yeah.
I saw the crib that he had prepared for his baby, and I've spent some time with Alex. I like him a lot. You get emotionally attached to fighters when you spend so much time with them. It's difficult sometimes, but it's the game, you know. So, there's a couple of standout moments for sure.
And the last question when we let you go: if you could call any fight a dream matchup, you and Dan, what's the fight you call?
Oh, good God! I mean, any championship fight, I guess, would be awesome. It would be great to call a Dan Hardy comeback. That would be good. If I could call any one of my teammates from back at Team Crossface, Charlie Leary, hopefully he'll get a chance in the UFC. Sam Patterson is a guy coming through who you guys should maybe keep an eye on. If those guys get to the UFC and I get to call their fights, then, you know, that would be an honour. And, but listen, it's just a privilege to be on the mic every time. As I said, I get to spend time with these fighters during fight week, sometimes go out on the countdown shoots, and they let me into their homes, let me into their stories and their worlds. And, you know, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is someone who I spent some time with as well, and to see her success has blown my mind, and I'm so pleased to see, you know, how she's kicked on. So I'm just happy to be here, guys.
You said it's a privilege to meet the fighters. It was a privilege for us to have you on, obviously, Fight Talk.
Thanks a lot, man.
Keep up the great work and the great commentary with yourself and Dan. And I look forward to watching the fights, but also listening to you guys call them. And have a great show. And thanks a million again, John.
Appreciate that, guys. Thanks for your support. And, catch you again soon, hopefully.
Cheers, man. Take
Bye-bye.
care. There you are, ladies and gentlemen, the voice of the UFC, John Gooden, one half of the European Dream Team. Great chat.
Yeah,
we fought our way through terrible connections.
Yeah, we got there. It wasn't actually bad. You know, it was a few hiccups, but it wasn't bad. That's them Polish connections. That sounds like a gang or something.
Yeah,
or a film.
Yeah,
make it.
Speaking of Polish connections, KSW later. So let's why sit around waiting. John was brilliant, but let's get on someone who coming off a big victory recently, weeks ago.
Yeah.
UFC 216. There's your clue. You'll find out after the... So welcome back to, obviously, Fight Talk. And if you're watching on YouTube, you will see, and if you're listening on audio, you're about to find out. We are joined by a professional record of 16 wins with just one defeat. His last victory came just a couple of weeks ago. We are now joined by Cody Stamann. So, Cody, thanks a million for taking the time to come on to, obviously, Fight Talk.
Of course, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cody, Rob reached out to you. We done the dirt on you a little bit. We had Tom Duquesnoy on the show the week that you fought. So Tom being French, we're an Irish podcast. Tom has fought here in Ireland quite a bit, so he has a bit of a following here. So, you know, we obviously said, let's get Tom Duquesnoy on. And then when the fight went on, Rob was like, we got to get to meet Cody and get to know him. So this is exactly the reason. So first of all, congratulations on a great victory over Tom Duquesnoy. But one question I have, when you went to the scorecards and you heard your winner by split decision, were you surprised by that?
Yeah, really surprised. Because my corner told me that I won all 3 rounds. After I watched the fight, I thought the first round was really close, and I could have easily lost that round. Just because he did land more significant strikes than me. But I mean, if you just look at the significant strikes, you look at the scorecard, you see that I quadrupled him those last 2 rounds in significant strikes. And I had 3 takedowns in that second round, none in the third. But I mean, I thought it was a no-brainer. I won 2-1. So when I heard the scorecards, I was a little nervous because it's happened to me before. My one loss is a split decision, kind of like that fight.
One thing I noticed during the fight as well, Cody, was you kept looking up at the big clock. Was that the internal game plan and ticker going for the takedown? Almost a throwback in some ways to there's a minute or so left in the round, let's get the takedown solidified around.
Yeah, I'm always curious as to what the time is too. Honestly, in the first round, I looked at the clock because one of my cornermen told me, he said 3 minutes, and I felt like I'd only been there for like 30 seconds. And I looked up at the clock and kind of like checked him because I'm like, dude, that can't be right. And then went back and he said 30 seconds is what he told me he said. And I was just honestly in the middle of the fight but confused as to what he was saying. So that's why I looked at it a couple of times in the first round, because I was honestly confused as to what my cornermen were telling me.
One thing you said, I read it in AMA that you done on Reddit. One thing you said, the most surprising thing about the fight was that Tom slowed down earlier than you thought. What you see that? How do you think that happened? Was it your pressure? Was it a lack of gas from Tom, or why do you think he slowed down quicker than you thought?
Well, he's not very big. I really thought he was a bigger guy. I thought because he fought at 35 and 45, he'd be a bigger guy. He'd be a big physical guy like me, being that I fought at 35 and 45. And, when I took him down a couple times in that first round, I could feel that I was physically a lot bigger than him. And, having a bigger guy on top of you and, trying to work up, that takes a lot out of your gas tank. I hit him with a couple good knees to the body. He hit me with a couple of good shots to the body, and I think that's it slowed me down a little bit in the first round. But in that second round, I hit him with a couple of real hard knees, and I could see it in his face and in his gas tank. He wasn't coming forward anymore. I was, fainting and moving, and he was backing up. You could tell he was almost he's a little bit battered from those shots. And I didn't expect that out of him. I saw all of his fights, man, and the kid's tough. He's fought some really, really tough guys from Europe, and he's always come out and at any shot he gets hit with, he kind of just walks through it. He goes after people. He had a crazy good gas tank, and I was pretty surprised that in that second round he started to fade.
Is that something you said in the third round? You didn't get any takedowns, but you could see it by watching the fight, and I've watched it back a couple of times as well. You could really see that Duquesnoy is known for coming forward, but in the third round it was all you. You were walking Duquesnoy down, and it was that then, even in commentary they were sort of alluding to it, saying Tom Duquesnoy normally comes forward while he's backing off here, and it's something Rob said when we were doing the post of the fight. It looked like Duquesnoy was moving quite weird. Did you notice anything when you were in there with him toe to toe, how his movement in the third round changed? It was almost like he was wobbled or something. His movement just seemed peculiar.
Yeah, it was like he was on like wobbly legs. Yeah. I think that was fatigue, honestly. I think he was tired, and that's why he was backing up. And that was it. The game plan coming into the fight was to back him up, because I knew how good he can fight coming forward. But I've seen a few guys that kind of stood their ground and backed him up. The guy's name is Brendan Lockman, I think.
Brendan Lockman.
Yeah. He was a guy that backed Duquesnoy up, and I thought he actually beat Duquesnoy. And so I kind of modeled his game plan, and you know what I mean? When Duquesnoy came forward, I would either get all the way out to where he couldn't do anything to me, or I would stand my ground and throw on him. And I think that really messed him up, because he's used to being one of those guys that backs people up and kind of imposes his game plan. And I think he's going to have a hard time with a lot of guys at 135. And if he thinks he's going to do that, it's a different league.
There was a lot of hype behind Tom going into the fight. Do you feel that you have taken that hype and it's changed? Because going into the fight, everyone was talking about Tom, and it's something that you spoke about as well, that all the pressure was on him, all the eyes were on him, and you were going to take it. Do you feel now that after the fight, since you won, that you've taken a little bit of that?
I've definitely taken a little bit of his hype. I think I just got ranked 14th. I think that whoever won that fight was going to get ranked really high. I definitely jumped a peg a lot higher than I had even planned to. I didn't think after 2 fights I'd be number 14 in the world. Yeah. That's actually pretty crazy to me. So I think that alone says that I did kind of take that hype that Tom Duquesnoy had. But Tom has done a really, really great job of marketing himself. He fought for Bama. He fought in front of a lot of big guys. The dude had a lot of pressure on him his whole professional career. So he's earned that hype, and he's won a lot of big fights. So he's earned that. I think that he's going to be successful in the future. But I definitely went out and like I said, I derailed that hype train.
It's probably a silly question in so many ways because I do sort of know the answer. But, you know, fighting on a card as big as 216 was, do you feel now that the eye is beating the hot prospect that many seen? Do you feel now, are you looking at, you're ranked 14th, are you looking for the top 10 guys or anyone in particular that you think you match up well against that you'd be looking at?
There's a few guys in that top 10 I feel like I match up really, really well against. There's not a specific name yet. I'm ready to fight again. I'm telling everybody that I want to fight December 30th. And, you know, my coaches and managers are kind of like, just relax. We'll see what happens. You know, if McGregor gets on that December 30th card, I think it's a no-brainer. I want to be on that card because the amount of exposure that card's going to give me is be absolutely insane. Just because, you know, when that guy fights, there's about 90 times more people tuning in. You know, and if he's fighting for the belt, that could be a huge opportunity for me to get a lot more eyes on me. So, I don't care. I mean, there's really nobody that I would say no to at this point. There's not a single dude in the show in the top 15 that I really look at and go, oh man, I really don't want to fight that guy. There's a couple names like I know this guy's fighting right now, but Brian Caraway was one guy that I really. You know, if I had gotten a microphone and I hadn't known that he was that was a guy I probably would have called out.
I think there's a long
just
queue.
I feel like
Brian Caraway. I think there's a long queue calling in for Brian Caraway. I think he's one of the most hated men in MMA.
Yeah, he. I don't know. He just his style, just the way. I don't know. I met him at Extreme Couture, and you know the dude really didn't give me the time of day. I mean, he was kind of a dick to me, so. I mean, I wanted to fight him just on a personal level, and now, you know, he's ranked really high, so now I want to, you know, fight him on a personal level, and I just, I don't think he's that good. He's got a weird style. I think, you know, he takes guys down and grinds them out. I don't get taken down in MMA. That dude can't take me down. So, you know, I could bang on him and beat him up, but unfortunately he's fighting December 9th. But I'm honestly staying ready because if something happens to Luke Saunders, I'm gonna jump on that. I'm gonna be all over Sean Shelby and tell him I want to fight Brian Caraway.
With the record that you have, like a couple of wins in that division, you mustn't be too far away from, you know, not just a top 10 or top 5. You know, a guys up there.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it like you know, there's a couple of different ways I can approach this. I can take a couple fights against guys ranked maybe lower than me, and just kind of keep building that brand, keep building my name. You know, in the UFC, or I can swing for the fences and just go after you know 2 top 10 guys back to back, and you know see how that plays out for me. I don't really see anyone that I can't figure out a way to beat. You know what I mean? Like you look at a guy like Duquesnoy. You know, he was a really challenging guy to fight. You know, because he's so aggressive and he comes forward and he's always in such good shape. You know, honestly, like when him and I got matched up together, I'm like, dude, this is the absolute worst possible guy I could have fought for my second fight. You know what I mean? Because he's a blue chip prospect. Everyone, you know, thinks he's gonna you know whoop me, and he's a tough guy to fight because he comes forward. I mean, he throws a lot of knees and elbows. Those aren't things that people train for, you know, naturally. But you know what I mean? Then you know, 2 months later, going into that fight, I was so confident there was no way in the world that dude could beat me. I knew that. I just prepared for everything that he was going to do. I didn't even really have the greatest fight, but you know, I still came out, you know, pull out the win. So I feel like I could do that with anybody, you know, in the division. I've trained with a lot of the guys in the. I'm not going to say any specific names, but you know, I've trained at Team Alpha Male. I've trained at River Sport with a lot of guys that are, you know, and that American Top Team, like a lot of guys in the top 10 I've trained with. So I kind of know what they bring to the table, and there's really not a guy that I feel like I absolutely can't beat. You know what I mean? If I have the time and the resources, you know, I'll put the work in to make sure that I get the win.
One thing you spoke about, and it's been in the news for the past couple of days, was the commentary during your fight. You felt that Rogan and Cormier, laughing there, that Rogan and Cormier were a little bit biased towards what Tom Duquesnoy was doing. Has there been what's happened since then? Have you heard from anybody? Has there been any tweets, or has that been blown up out of proportion?
So I did say that. I did say that in an interview. So I'm not saying it's like fake news and somebody is like setting me up, trying to get like trying to make me look bad. I did say that. I said in an interview, I said, I was, watching the fight, listening to the commentary, and they were biased. But at the time I was upset about it, and now I look at it like, well, why wouldn't they be biased? You know what I mean? Like Duquesnoy has got 10 times the following than I did. He was a favorite to win the fight. They probably knew more about him, so obviously they have more to talk about with him. And you know what? At the end of the fight, they were talking about me and how good I looked. And that's not really something I should be upset about. Like I said, I was being a whiny little punk about it. It was like 2 days afterwards, when I did that interview, so I was still a little salty about it. And there's not a good job in this MMA business, and I should know better than to poke at even the commentators, because it's not their fault. They're just doing their job, with the resources they have. And that got blown up. I've been tagged in like 30, 40 different pictures on Instagram. I got people telling me that I'm like a whiny little roided midget. I was reading the comments yesterday. I was just dying laughing at the things people are saying.
I love social media.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you give some people some drama to attach to, man, they just attack it. And I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that kind of. One thing I say, being taken that way and being blown up like that. I mean, but ultimately it's my fault. I'm the one that said it, and I talked to DC. DC shot me a message on Twitter, and he said he was sorry. I said, not necessarily a big fan of yours, and he had some good, some kind words to say. So that was cool to hear from him. But I don't expect that. Yeah. I don't expect Joe Rogan to apologize. I don't expect him to even see this. I'd rather he didn't see any of this. And I'm not upset. I'm not salty about it. I was salty about it for a couple of days, but I sent on, I think on Instagram, and I was just basically saying like I'm as salty about this as I am like when I sat down and take a shit this morning and there was no toilet paper. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was mad about it for a second.
You have two socks on you, brother.
Yeah, and I was like, fuck it, who cares?
With it being an Irish podcast, we love a mammy story. Are we right to say that a big part of you getting into MMA was due to your mother?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, my mom, she actually signed me up for my first MMA class. She bought me a 6-month package for my birthday when I had just turned 18. I was, I boxed, wrestled. I've been a competitive athlete, like 3-4 sport athlete my whole life. I love to compete, at any sport. It wasn't just boxing, wrestling. I played rugby. I ran track. I like to compete. And then, when all that stopped, I just turned, just being a little dick and, beating people up at every chance I got. My mom was kind of the one that was like, Cody, you need. You know what I mean? You need to channel this. You've been an athlete your whole life. You need an outlet. You have to find something. And she's like, I think this would be really good for you. You don't have to fight. Just train, just work out. I think you'll really like it. And I did, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Honestly, I was going to school and I was going to take over my dad's business, and then I just felt so in love with fighting that it was like. I was like, I have to do this, and I told my parents, I'm gonna be a professional fighter. I'm gonna fight in the UFC, and they're like, good luck. We'll support you in anything you do, but this is something that you got to do on your own. And I moved across the state, met Darren Cruikshank, and here I am.
Well done, Mom.
Well done, Mom. Yeah.
Well done, Mom. Listen, Cody, it's an absolute pleasure. We won't take up any more of your time. Again, congratulations on a huge victory. Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you in there again, my man. And thanks for taking the time to come on to Obviously Fight Talk.
Of course, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Take care. Take care, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
See, always listen to your mother.
Always listen to your
ma. She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's mothers are great.
What's that, Rob? You want another guest?
You want another guest?
Another guest who's fighting this weekend.
Oh, Jesus.
You want another guest who's fighting this weekend? Yeah. Smiling Sam Alvey. So welcome back to, obviously, Fight Talk, and if you are watching on YouTube, you will recognise that face, especially the smile. If you're listening on audio, you're about to find out. We are now joined by UFC fighter, smiling Sam Alvey. So Sam, thanks a million. Fight week, a couple of days out from the fight, for coming on to, obviously, Fight Talk.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. I love doing all that.
Again, the John Gooden connection screwed us there. Sam, you're taking a fight on short notice. Am I right in saying this is your first fight in Europe?
This is my first fight in Europe. You know what? When I was an amateur, I fought in Russia, and I think I was on the European side of Russia. But other than that, first fight in Europe.
Is that exciting? Do you like traveling to fight?
I love traveling. I always say, for so long, I fought to travel. You never make any money in the sport, but you get free trips places. So my wife and I, we just go around the world beating people up, and it's nice that I'm getting paid a little bit now to do it too.
Is this your first time in Poland itself? I know you haven't fought there, but is it your first time actually visiting?
Yeah, first time in Poland. Loving it so far. I've been here for 2 days. The jet lag is getting me. I forget what day it is now. But I've been here 2 or 3 days, and just loving it. Beautiful country. Very nice.
You originally thought that this fight was going to be at 205. So at 185, is there a difference with the likes of the food that's available to you in Poland for cutting the weight, or?
I brought most of my food from home. Almonds. I get almonds. It gives me a little something in my head to chew on. And then I got here. I found a fruit market pretty easily. So a little sugar, a little fat, and that'll get me through this week.
I visited Poland recently. I'll just tell you, stay away from the beer because it's delicious. I'm not sure if you're a beer drinker, but it's delicious. But definitely stay away from it because it's cheap and it's delicious.
I'll definitely stay away. Wait, alcohol, that dehydrates you, right?
Oh yeah. It's good. That's a very good point.
So I need to drink more beer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're taking on, I'm going to try this, Ramazan Emeev. That's what we'll go with it. Former M1 champion. What do you know about your opponent, or is that something? I know you're saying your family is with you there. I know your wife does be involved in your game planning as well. So what research have you done on your opponent on such short notice?
We do everything we can, but he seems like a stud. He's fought some real talent. He's beaten some real talent, and he was the M1 champ. When I came to the UFC, I was the MFC champ with the same kind of resume. I think I'm a better fighter now than I was then. And honestly, I think any day of the week I'll be able to win this fight. Not that he's not a game opponent. I just think I'm a better opponent.
Was there any hesitation in taking this fight? Because I know that you said you got the call and pretty much straight away you said yes. But, you've coming off the biggest win of your career against Rashad Evans. Was there any hesitation taking a guy who, by all accounts, is a much less known guy than Rashad or even yourself?
You know what? I've never considered that in my saying yes process. The only thing I looked at this time was the scale. Yeah. And the scale was real borderline to not letting me take the fight. But I decided to do it.
I know a lot of guys don't like to tell their weight, but are you looking good for the weigh-ins so far?
I'll just say I've never missed weight. I've got over 50 fights. I've never missed weight. I'm not going to break my streak now.
Bringing it back to your last performance against Rashad Evans, probably, as Rob said, would you agree, biggest win of your career?
Yeah, easily. I fought some studs. I had Nate Marquardt not long before that. Yeah. I had, Ultimate Fighter champions. I've had a lot of big fights, but Rashad was hands down the most difficult and the biggest name I've ever fought. He was a former UFC champion, and I got the honor and the privilege to fight him, and I won.
Again, like when you look at your career, you were riding a 4-fight win streak after you beat Nate. Then you got in with Talis Ladies. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way. When that happens, a lot of people say defeat is the secret to success. What do you do after defeat? Do you look back to see the mistakes, or do you just move on, or do you rewatch and learn from the mistakes?
You always got to try and learn from the mistake. The biggest thing I did after that fight is I went to physical therapy. I prior to the fight, I had broken my ankle about 3 weeks before, or I tore a bunch of stuff in my ankle. and it really lit me up. But I was on the verge of setting and tying the record for most fights in a year, so I couldn't say no. I couldn't not fight him. I had to get to that record. Unfortunately, the ankle slowed me up just a little too much, and the rest is history. He got the big win, and I got to limp home.
Do you see yourself fighting again by the end of the year, or do you think this will be the last one?
Realistically, it's probably the last one, but I hope I fight again. Is there a card next week? I'll fight on that one
too. With Poland, do you find now, like walking around, you're going to get more? In a way, I suppose, when you're fighting in the likes of Vegas and stuff like that, fight fans are sort of used to seeing fighters walking around. But when you're walking around Poland, do you notice the fans coming up to you going, "Oh my God, there's Sam Alvey"?
No, not at all yet. Maybe it'll happen, but not yet.
Have you got the smile shaved in the back of your head yet?
I don't. I didn't have time. I tried. I tried. I was on such a tight timeline to get here. I wasn't able to do it this time.
Realistically, looking at the fight, what do you see the game plan being here, Sam? Do you see yourself just being a typical Alvey fight where you have a plan set in mind, or are you the type of guy that just goes with the flow? Where the fight goes, you're happy to smile and take it there?
You know, most of my fight game plans are about the same. Hit the guy more hard, more often than he hits me, and I'll win every fight. Nothing's changed. I got to hit him harder and more often than he hits me, and I'll win this one.
I think the one thing I was researching before the interview was, as Noah brought up, your wife. She's very involved with your fight career, and she does a lot of the research. Just explain to people who don't know the whole process of that, because she's not a fighter. She comes from a very different background than being a fighter.
Yeah, you know what? At the very beginning, when I was with her before I ever started fighting. So at the beginning, if I said she was my corner, it was a free ticket to the event. She didn't have to pay for anything. And she started taking it a lot more serious than I did. I mean, she started researching. She started finding fights. The whole reason I'm in Southern California now is because of her. She did the research on Dan Henderson's gym, which brought me out there. And now I've got, the greatest coaches in Gustavo and Ricardo. And there's no turning around. I wouldn't have the career if not for her.
And do you find, does it add more pressure having the wife in the corner watching you, as in assisting you? How does she find? Because I know a lot of fighters' partners would struggle watching their husband or wife in a fight and taking shots. How does she cope with that?
She always says if I'm getting hit, it's because I'm not listening to her well enough. No, it's honestly just what we've always done from fight one. She's been in my corner, and she's been a big part of my game plan.
I know you have a couple of kids. Do you see them getting into the fight game?
If I have anything to do about it, no. They'll be swimmers or baseball players, golf. They'll be doing something else.
I know you're in the process of actually adopting. Is that correct?
Yeah, yep. And we're hoping that maybe this December we get over to Africa and officially meet the little girl. We're going through all the paperwork. We're doing everything we can to get it set up. It's just a long, drawn-out process.
With these type of things we're talking about, this isn't like it's not a stereotypical interview where people have this. This is why I think we were talking about John Gooden and talking about how much John wants to start a show here in Europe where it shows fighters' lifestyles, where you can get to know more, almost like an embedded style, but a more loose, not leading up to a fight, to get to know the fighters. And for me, talking to you here, you seem to be the prime suspect of somebody that people need to get to know, because you're not, I don't mean us MMA fans. I mean the guys who are looking from the outside, looking in at it and going, oh, these are barbaric people who do this. You're such a nice guy. How do you end up being a fighter?
I never intended on being a fighter. I was a band nerd. I played trumpet for 20-something years. I just thought I was tough, so I jumped in the cage, and I just started winning. Eventually, somebody said they'd pay me, and I said, well, I'll just start training then. And somewhere along the line, I learned about the UFC and Bellator and all that. Actually, I think the first fight I ever watched was Bellator. Wow. When it was on the All-Spanish channel back home. So I think. But I wasn't an MMA fan. I wasn't a boxing fan. I just kind of fell into it. And I love my life. I love that I've fallen into something so great.
I read it as well. I think it was after your last fight that, speaking of a band, you wanted to start a band. Have you started a band yet?
No, not yet.
No.
I think
process.
the band you're thinking of are my kids. I want to have enough kids that I can have a band.
What kind of music do you play?
I'm a trumpeter, so classical, some jazz. But honestly, I'm not a third the trumpet player I used to be.
Yeah.
Every now and then I pick it up and toot around on it with the kids. But 6 years ago I could have played for 4 hours.
Wow.
Right now I've got a hard time playing for 4 minutes.
That's quite weird, 'cause I'm trying to think as I'm watching you walk out in the UFC. I'm thinking, what song does he come out to? And what do you come out to? Are you given a song? Do you want to come out to some jazz flute? Hence, Ron Burgundy style stuff? Like,
I walk out to Hey Soul Sister from Train.
Oh,
that's right.
I've been walking out to them for 6 or 7 years now.
Good song.
Yeah.
Can't disagree with that.
I like the song. That's why I picked it.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of fighters say that Dana White has a lot to do with the selection of the song if they want to come out to certain songs. Is there any truth in that, or probably not in your case coming out to Soul Sister?
He's never said a word to me. I've never read anything. Nobody's ever said anything.
Must like it.
What's the plan then after everything goes according to plan in Gdansk? Your hand gets raised. You planning on staying over there to see Poland a little, or is it fly back to the warmth of the States?
Well, we're going to hang out for one more day just to kind of see Gdansk.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go home. And shortly after that, hopefully to Africa to meet my new daughter.
Good luck with that.
Cool.
And congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. And
thank you very much.
it's pretty cool to get to talk to you on. It's pretty normally when you talk to a fighter fight week, it can be quite a intense interview. But no, this wasn't. This was great fun.
Yeah.
Great chatting to you. I've always enjoyed watching.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Maybe we can do it again.
100%, man. I love watching you fight, and it's intoxicating watching you smile down here. I'm just sitting here with a big smile on me as well. So I look forward to watching you fight at the weekend, my man. And safe trip home with your family, and everything goes according to plan in Africa.
Hey, thank you guys very much. I hope you enjoy the fight, and I'll talk to you soon after.
Cheers.
Amazing stuff. Thanks, Sam. Take care.
All right, bye, guys.
There you go. Smiling, Sam Alvey. And I wonder where he gets that nickname from.
Yeah, I wonder. I wouldn't have got it. Yeah.
But
nice
it's weird. Like that doesn't seem like that was a fight interview.
It doesn't seem like it was fight week either. Like not just fight interview, but a fight week interview. Because a lot of guys are really tense and couldn't wait and stuff. And he seemed okay.
One thing I got to say about all our guests, John Gooden, Cody Stamann, and Smiling Sam Alvey, is we are now recording this on a Tuesday. We normally record on a Monday, but this country was hit with a hurricane.
Yeah.
With a storm, with a bit of wind and rain. It was bad on the west coast.
It was bad on the west and the south. But here in
the
Dublin,
west and the south of Ireland.
Okay, but we didn't know that.
No. So we didn't record the show. So we had all the guys lined up for yesterday, Monday, to come on at times. And unfortunately, we couldn't make it because there was no transport, there was no nothing. So we had to postpone the show. But the three guys all lined it up and said, same time tomorrow, let's do it. So big shout out. That's one thing about this sport, Rob, is that the people of this sport are so accessible. Yeah. And you can see it there. 3 very different interviews, but by 3 people who all have the love for the same sport. They do what me and Rob love to watch and talk about. I have to say a big thank you to the 3 lads for coming on. Again, reschedule and great stuff. Yeah, great stuff. One thing we should tell people is go to our Facebook page right now. We're doing a competition. Doing a big competition. It's right there. You can see it there. If you watch the start of the show, you could see them a little bit closer up. But you can win a lot of stuff. I didn't know that the CBD oil came that way. There's loads of them. Yeah, loads of them. We have CBD oil. Yeah. We have, I don't know how to say this. Cordyceps. Whatever. Cordyceps. Yeah, I'm not. Redolia is the stuff that Chinese take. Redolia, and so basically this is a fighter pack. If you go onto our Facebook page, you have to do a couple of things. You have to like, obviously, Fight Talk. You have to like feelsupreme.co.uk, and you have to tag 2 people who you'd like to win these. So the pack is a fighter athlete pack, which is CBD oil and the 2 bottles as well. Yeah. So get on it, and thanks to Feel Supreme for giving us them.
There's
as
also
well.
a runner-up prize of a nutritional test, not just any nutritional test. It's very you basically send a hair sample and they send it to a lab. It's real complex,
and they basically tell you what your body's lacking,
or what it's great.
Set of balls.
Yeah, exactly.
Set of balls. No, but yeah, great prize on feelsupreme.co.uk. Go and check them out now. And why not when you've tried to win this, why not go on site, see the great products they have, and then when you buy stuff, right at the end where it says checkout, there's a promotional code. If you use Fight Talk, 10%
off.
10% off. Show me the money. Show me the money. Yeah, so get on it, get liking and doing that to Fight Store Ireland, the fighter's choice, everything you need under two roofs, be it testicle holders, shin guards, head guards, gloves. They've looked after Conor McGregor, they can look after you. And then to MMAmix.com, they're obviously good because they are with obviously Fight Talk. Rob, this has been a decent show by all accounts. It was a good show. Stressful day for me leading up to this, but never mind that. Rob was on holidays and he came in the studio.
I came in the studio on holidays.
But this has been 85.
Yes.
Magnificent. Enjoy the fights. What a weekend of fights you have. You have Bellator, you have UFC, and you have KSW. Enjoy the hostilities.